Many scary and terrible places in the world give you goosebumps just by looking at their photo, and not to mention presence there. In some of these places, terrible events took place, and some, according to legend, restless souls roam in the form of ghosts, some just look creepy, and some are all together. In today's video, Top F will tell you about the 10 scariest places in Ukraine and their brief history. And before we start, support my channel with your likes, subscriptions, and turn on notifications to catch all the new releases. Grab your popcorn, we start. Devil's Stone, Pidkamen. Devil's Stone is a mystical place and a natural monument in the small village of Pidkamen in the Lviv region. This strange rock formation, 17 meters high, rises on a hill, around which there are no other mountains. There is a legend that the devil himself tore this stone from the Carpathians and decided to crush the Pachav monastery, located not far from this place. But on the way, while he was carrying him, morning came, the roosters crowed, and the devil disappeared into the black sky. And the stone remained to lie on a high hill and was called Devil's. Once in this place was the Sarmatian Sea. According to scientists, this rock remnant, according to rough estimates, is about 11 million years old. In any case, the Devil's Stone is considered one of the places of power in Ukraine, near which energy flows are felt. A pagan temple, a sanctuary, and Cossack crosses dating back to the 17th century were found here. On the western side, recesses in the shape of a heart are hollowed out. Perhaps rituals were performed here earlier, and the stone could be an idol to which residents brought donations. They say that at night it's quite creepy here. Sacrifices were once held near the Devil's Stone, and cemetery stone crosses are visible in the dark, which have survived to this day. Mount Bona in Kriemnitz, Ternopil region. Castle Hill, Mount Bona, rises above the city of Kriemnitz in the Ternopil region. This place has long been overgrown with legends and stories that attract tourists. The history of Kriemnitz is closely connected with the castle, where in the 16th century the cruel queen lived, the wife of the Polish king Zygmunt I, Bona Sforza. There are many terrible legends about her. Queen Bona Sforza received the Kriemnitz castle as a gift from her husband, along with nearby villages. Zygmunt moved to Krakow, and Bona lived for her pleasure in the Kriemnitz castle and did not care too much about marital fidelity. Her love appetites were so great that a whole male harem was kept at the castle. Bona was a beautiful, intelligent, and extremely cruel woman. Terrible, even demonic deeds were attributed to her. These legends of the Bloody Queen have survived to this day. It was rumored that Bona Sforza made a deal with the devil, who promised her eternal youth, for which she had to sacrifice virgins. According to one of the versions, she outlived 2 of her daughters-in-law. Bona Sforza was not satisfied with their origin, which did not correspond to her political plans. But justice triumphs even over those who have power and strength. Bona was poisoned on the orders of the Habsburgs by her doctor. The queen rests in her principality in the city of Bari in Italy. But she left her wealth in Kriemnitz. Some of the treasures are hidden in the Kriemnitz castle, where they were searched for, but never found. And now her ghost sometimes walks through the ruins of the castle to check if all the treasures have remained in place. Lykakiv Cemetery, Lviv. Each cemetery is fraught with stories and legends. And if you come to the cemetery on Halloween, walking along the graves and crypts through the autumn fog, you can feel a slightly creepy atmosphere. There is a place in Lviv where you get goosebumps in the evenings. This is the famous Lykakiv Cemetery. Here, among the crypts and stone angels, guides lead very popular night tours, especially in the cold season. There are more than 5,000 tombs, 2,000 crypts, about 500 sculptures, 24 chapels, and 5 memorials at the Lykakiv Cemetery. Many celebrities are buried here. A bricklayer with a huge jackhammer stands on the grave of Ivan Franko. Young Orpheus with a harp in his hand sits on the grave of the famous opera singer Solomia Krushelnitska. The history of the Lykakiv Cemetery begins in 1783. Then, by order of the Austrian Emperor Joseph II, for sanitation purposes, burials around city churches and churches were banned. Remains from old burials in the city center were moved to a new resting place. Before that, plague victims were buried on the site of the Lykakif Cemetery, and then it turned into an elite burial place for privileged urban residents. The architectural and aesthetic value of the Lykakif Cemetery is its huge family crypts with magnificent bas-reliefs, tombstones, and marble sculptures. Many of them excite the imagination and give rise to mystical legends. There are crypts here with a bad reputation, for example, the tomb of Rosalia and Wanda Zamoyski. Mother and daughter died tragically in a fire in 1902. They say that if you walk past their crypt in the evening, you can hear the chains rattling inside it, on which the coffins are hung. Ivano-Frankivsk Prison. Ivano-Frankivsk is more than 4 centuries old, and as a decent old city, it also acquired terrible legends. The central market square, where the city hall of Ivano-Frankivsk is located, is sometimes called cursed. And all because the central prison was located in the basement under the building. In 1801, due to the debts of Stanislav, now Ivano-Frankivsk, the Austrians expelled the magistrate from the town hall and transferred it to the military department. A prison for political criminals was placed in its cellars. Enemies of the regime and Hutsul rebels from the Carpathians rotted in the cells. Public executions took place in the square in front of the town hall, and thousands of people were tortured to death in the underground prison. In particular, in 1754, in the town hall of Stanislav, a trial was held against the leader of the rebels, Vasily Bayurek, who was sentenced. The executioner must cut off both his arms with an axe to the elbow, and then his head should be cut off, and the body was ordered to be quartered. After the execution, certain parts of Vasily's body were hung on trees on the way to Stanislav, and the head remained hanging in the city as a warning to other rebels. After that terrible execution, the town hall building was very unlucky. It has been rebuilt and restored 4 times throughout its history. There is a belief that the ghost of the executed Hutsul leader still roams the corridors and halls of the town hall to this day. And because of this, a lot of security guards quit. Podgoretsky Castle, Lviv region. In the village of Podgortsy, Lviv region, there is one of the most beautiful castles in Ukraine with a long and legendary history. The castle was built in 1440 by Ivan Podgoretsky, who received these lands as a gift from the Polish king Władysław Jagiello III. Passing through the centuries, the castle changed owners many times, which greatly influenced its appearance and current state. The abandonment and gloomy appearance of the old walls have become an occasion for creepy, chilling legends and stories. According to one of them, a ghost woman lives here, White Pani, who still roams the corridors of the palace. In 1787, the castle complex, together with the surrounding villages, went to Severin Zavusky. He was a gloomy and unsociable Pan, and his wife Maria, on the contrary, was famous for her kindness and meekness, helping the poor and treating the sick. Most of all, she loved to dress in white dresses, for which she was nicknamed the White Pani. For years, Pan Zavusky was fond of alchemy and sat in the gloomy dungeons of the castle in search of the elixir of immortality. And the longer he sat on his potions, the blacker he became and the faster he aged. And Maria, as she was the White Lady, remained the same. She looked young, and it seemed that the years had no power over her. Terrible envy took possession of the heart of Severin. He decided that the secret of immortality was known to his wife. He imprisoned her in a dungeon and began to elicit the secret of longevity. Only Maria did not know what to answer him. Her whole secret was that she simply loved the world and people, and gave her kindness and participation to others. And they responded to her in return. The Count did not believe his wife, and ordered Mary to be taken to the farthest dungeon and walled up alive in the wall. Since then, on the day of the death of the Countess, the ghost of the White Lady wanders around the castle, not knowing peace. Nevitsky Castle, Transcarpathian region. Nevitsky Castle is located near Uzhgorod and is considered one of the most mystical places in Ukraine. It was built in the 13th century, and in the 17th century, it was captured by the Transylvanian Prince Georgy Rakotsi, who destroyed it and left ruins that have not been restored since then. Nevitsky Castle keeps many legends. According to one of them, he is often seen as the ghost of the evil Virgo, the spirit of the Uzgarad Countess, who was distinguished by special cruelty and magical abilities. During the construction of the castle, she ordered to take away all the milk and eggs from the peasants to strengthen the walls with this. The unfortunate people were starving, but it seemed to her that this was not enough. The evil Virgo ordered to add mother's milk to the solution, and then also human blood. It did not become easier for the people even after the construction of the castle was completed. The evil Virgo's warriors roamed the villages. She watched the passers-by from the castle tower. Whoever walked past the castle, but did not bow low to her, she ordered him to cut off his head. People began to bypass this place by the 10th road. The worker Ivanko lived at that time in the village of Orkovica, not far from the castle. Once he told his master that he would free the people from the evil Virgo. He gathered a large herd of cattle and drove them to the castle. When it became dark, Ivanko ordered to tie a bell to each animal and a lit candle to each horn. When the whole herd roared towards the fortress, the evil Virgo woke up from a terrible noise and was frightened, jumped on her horse, and rushed towards Uzgarad. But Ivanko caught up with her and cut down the cruel sorceress. Her body was burned, and a mound was poured over the ashes. And now it stands under lock and key in the valley. Interestingly, this legend has a real prototype, Elizabeth Bathory, who became famous as a serial killer. The soulless ruler allegedly took baths from the blood of virgins to remain forever young. It is believed that it was the spirit of the Hungarian countess that roams over the ruins of the Nevitsky castle because it was there that she found her innocent victims. Bald Mount in Kiev. Bald Mount is a mysterious and legendary hilly area in Kiev. There are several so-called bald mountains in the capital. One of them is located in the Vidobiki region, and earlier the mountain was bald from sparse vegetation, but now it is covered with forest and is part of a forest park. The place's mystical representatives of various subcultures and pagans often gather here. The name is also associated with ancient legends about the coven of witches and werewolves on the mountain. It was believed that an essential attribute of witches was a magic potion, the herbs for which were collected right here on Bald Mountain. Where did the dark glory of this place come from? Bald Mountain is divided into three parts: Rizalking Yard, named after the lake located there, in which, according to legend, mermaids live, Witches' Yar, and Dead Grove, burials of past centuries, were found here. Archaeologists on Bald Mountain got interesting finds: underground passages, in which, according to ancient chronicles, ancient sorcerers hid from Prince Vladimir, who used Bald Mountain for their pagan rituals. Over time, this mountain went to the Petrusk Lavra, and in the 19th century a military fort was built on this land, warehouses were arranged, and then a garrison prison, in which there were gallows for the execution of sentences. The bodies of sentenced criminals were buried near the place of execution. Now dug graves can be observed here. And today on Bald Mountain you can find traces of pagan offerings, coins, and sweets that are left after the rituals. Lviv Dungeons. Several dungeons in Lviv excite the imagination with stories and legends. One of them is the dungeon of the Jesuit church, in which a carved sarcophagus of the Archbishop of Vizitsky was found, dating back to the 18th century. Interestingly, the sarcophagus has a hole made from the inside, which is still a mystery to historians. It was as if the person buried in it was desperately trying to break free. Not far away, in the Dominican Cathedral, there is another dungeon, by the way, the oldest in Lviv. In terrible medieval times, when the Dominican Cathedral was the center of the so-called Dogs of God, looking for people objectionable to the church, witches, and heretics, it was convenient to place everyone who was under suspicion in the dungeons. In damp, cold dungeons, not only convicts found their last refuge, but also monks, who atoned for their sins by scourging and voluntary imprisonment. According to legend, the ghost of the Black Monk still wanders the dungeons in search of his sold soul. This legend is especially impressive against the background of the reconstructed torture chamber, in which many innocent souls died. A psychiatric hospital in Vinica. In this building, patients were treated with strange methods, and healthy people were also imprisoned here. Today, the building of the Regional Clinical Psychoneurological Hospital is named after them. Hospital is an architectural landmark of Venezia. But it has a sad reputation. A lot of dark facts of history are connected with the psychiatric hospital. The grand opening of this medical institution took place on May 25, 1897. One of the doctors was Alexander Yushchenko, who worked here for 3 years, and now the hospital bears his name. For the first 20 years since its opening, the hospital flourished. But the First and Second World Wars turned the exemplary medical institution into the epicenter of pain and suffering. During the October Revolution, some buildings of the hospital were given over to barracks, and already in 1919 a new misfortune befell it: Asiatic cholera and typhus. The mortality situation has only worsened. However, this was only the beginning of the dark wave of this medical institution. During the Second World War, the Germans placed an officers' club and a casino within the walls of this unique architectural masterpiece. It was also here that experiments were carried out on mentally ill people, destroying about 800 patients with especially cruel methods. All of them are buried in the cemetery next to the hospital in a mass grave with an obelisk. The hospital gained fame as a bad place where thousands of innocent souls died. Museum of Human Diseases, Lviv. The dead help the living. Such an inscription in Latin greets visitors at the entrance to the Museum of Human Diseases. If you want to get maximum emotions from the terrible spectacle of the dead, go to Lviv at 69 Pekarskaya Street. The museum has about 2,000 exhibits. Huge jars of formalin are exhibited here, in which the bodies of stillborn two-headed children, the organs of sick people, and many other creepy exhibits are stored. You cannot come to this museum with children or if you have an unstable psyche. The museum functions at the Lviv National Medical University, named after Daniil Galitsky. It was founded in 1896 by professor pathologist Andrei Obsat. He brought several exhibits from Charles University in Prague. Some of them are more than 150 years old. These are collections of eye tumors, cirrhosis of the liver, and the pathology of newborns. The museum has an archive of autopsy protocols from 100 years ago. Now the collection of the museum is replenished from the mortuary located nearby after the autopsy of the dead. A real anatomical theater adjoins the museum. This is a real classroom in which students practice. They watch how pathologists dissect the dead. Having visited the Museum of Human Diseases, you will not be able to face ghosts. Here you soon begin to understand how important it is to protect your health and not to use alcohol and drugs. All the consequences of bad habits are visible on the exhibits, the appearance of which will be remembered for a lifetime. That's all for today. Mr. Top F was with you. Thanks for watching this video to the end. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Also, write down in the comments what topic of the video you want to see in the next release of Top F. Bye.